Hello everyone and welcome back to Tidgney's GT Sport Driving School. We're on episode number 8 and I know it's been a while. We've had a little break from it just due to the FIA competitions and also the fact that my computer decided to die. Anyway, we are back with episode number 8, but let's review the 7 that we've already done. So we had an introduction, of course, so technically it would be 8, but then we went into episode 1, which was braking. If you haven't seen that braking one, it's a very good episode. Even some of the top drivers looked at it and was like, oh, okay, I understand this bit more, that bit more. One to definitely look out for. Accelerating, we then looked at in episode number 2, and that was all about understanding how cars accelerate. What do the different driving aids do? How does that differentiate? What can I use to get an advantage in certain situations? Again, another good one to look at. We then went into cornering, looking at different types of corners, how to take them, how to approach them, and how to understand them as well. Followed them by weight transfer. Obviously, that is all affected by those first 3, braking, accelerating, and cornering. How does the car weight move about? How can you use that to your advantage? And that's all what we discussed in that one. We then moved on to episode number 5, which was all about understeer and oversteer. Of course, how to manage those, how to stop it, and things you can do that potentially might help you or hinder you using those performance issues in a car. And we then went into consistency. Of course, consistency very key in terms of qualifying, practice, and also the race. And so I just talked about how I got my consistency up, what I do to make sure I'm consistent every lap. And then finally we went into qualifying. How can you get the best qualifying to make sure you start in the perfect place for that all-important race? This now, episode number 8, is all about overtaking. And of course, coming on from qualifying, if you haven't started in the position you feel you should be in, you're going to have to do a lot of that. So we're going to go into a few different techniques that you can use to overtake. Some are going to be relatively straightforward. Others are just going to be, strategy calls or potentially what you could do to sack out your opponent in a little bit. So, with that in mind, let's look first of all at Slipstream, which is the easiest one of them all. So, here we have Interlagos, a fairly recent round in the FIA. So first of all, let me just explain Slipstream for those that don't know it at all. As I say, we want to start from the very beginning and just for you to understand it a little bit. My teammates in front of me, this is a qualifying session. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate exactly how the Slipstream is going to work here. You can see I'm staying right behind him. And as we head towards the line, we hit that start-finish line, 160 miles an hour, well in that 160 miles an hour. Now, if I then compare this to the next lap, it's 156 miles an hour. So why does that 4 mile an hour difference exist? Well, the reason being is that the leading car is cutting a hole through the air. The air is a very dense wall. Now, the minute that you get inside that wall, so inside behind the punctured wall, basically, it takes less power to get quicker in the car because you're not hitting that wall. You're hitting maybe a tiny bit of the wall, whereas the front car is hitting the entire wall of air. It's really dense, it's hitting it full on, so it's very hard to increase that speed. So that is what is happening. So let's look at that now in the race perspective. So here we are behind Pumpku and Skippy. Now, I wanted to show you where it necessarily doesn't work in overtaking all the time. So the Audi R8 is already a powerful car, that's the car that we're in. But we go to the left here, look at Pumpku, he instantly keeps his speed up, and now he's going to start accelerating a little bit more initially because he stayed in that slipstream with Skippy. Skippy's in a Lamborghini Huracan, which is very fast on the straight. So in this situation, it's very hard to gain an advantage. Now Pumpku has to stay in that slipstream right till the very end of the straight. No room for me to do the overtake there, so I'm having to come in behind. But Pumpku does get it done with the slipstream, but only right at the end. And it's very, very, hard when there is a faster car up ahead to use that slipstream to your advantage. We go a little bit later on. Again, we're behind Pumpku. This time I'm going to exit the corner. It's going to look very, very similar here. As you can see, we accelerate, and initially we have much, much higher speed than Pumpku. But because Pumpku stays in that slipstream, I've got to fall into place. Now, Bellin seems to be struggling on speed a little bit in that Viper. So instantly now, Pumpku's got a good slipstream advantage. And now I have an even better advantage because I've used the slipstream for longer. Have a little bit more speed in the car. I can then overtake. So that's using slipstream to your advantage there. Staying in that slipstream till the very last second, coming out of it, and actually overtaking the car. Very straightforward. You're basically using the car in front to your advantage. They're hitting that wall of air. You don't have to hit that wall of air, therefore you can go a slightly bit quicker. Again, you can see that here with Sutsu. I'm catching him very, very quickly on the straight. Again, it's all to do with slipstream. So, it's the easiest overtake you could do. Just stay behind someone, get a nice lovely slipstream on the straight, and just overtake them on the straight. No braking needed. One action, foot to the floor. Now, let's have a look at setting up somebody for a corner overtake, or maybe multiple corner overtakes, or maybe a corner overtake into a straight overtake. Let's have a look at that now. So here we are racing Steve Gaming, and we're at one of the Tokyo circuits. Now it's a Group 4 race, so we're in the TT Cup car. We've got front wheel drive, of course. Steve Gaming in the front engine rear wheel drive Jaguar F-Type. Now when we talk about setting up for an overtake, it's more to do with the fact that a car in front of us potentially has an advantage over us. So as we saw earlier on with the Lamborghini, Skippy had a lot of straight line speed, so it took a lot of work for Pumpku to actually get alongside Skippy in order to make the overtake. And it's a similar sort of situation here. So what you will see here, obviously it's a fast circuit, is the slipstream take effect. You're going to start to see me start to close up to Steve Gaming, but then you'll see that when I go alongside, the Jaguar's top end speed is actually a lot better than the Audi TT's, and I struggle to get any advantage at all. As we head through the tunnel now, initially I just come off the throttle a little bit there, front wheel drive, got a bit of a weakness there on high speed corners, and then going to go to the left hand side. So as we head towards this braking zone, this is the perfect opportunity. How good are my brakes? As we brake, you can see I've got a significant advantage straight away, leaving room on the inside, slight bit of contact there, but nothing major. But instantly I can go, right, okay, my braking is better than Steve Gaming's here in this car. The only problem I have is top end speed. So that says to me I've got to, make a move on a corner with sharp braking. Problem is I've got to be able to keep up with him up to that point. Now if I was Steve, I would literally just stay to the inside in every single corner. Happy days, I've made the move then. So I'm going to go to the left hand side here. So I'm going to set up the move for the hairpin, which is turn 5. But I'm going to set it up on turn 1. So we come to the left hand side here, we brake. Now Steve Gaming's just going to be a little bit wide there because he's had to take a much tighter line, which then leaves him open on this corner. We're now going to be right behind Steve Gaming. And look at this now, we're a 10th behind. So at this point he's defending, he's having to take tighter lines, and we're staying with Steve Gaming. So as we head towards now the hairpin, we just stay to the left here. We then come in, and then we're going to look to the right side. So we make our move intention very clear. Steve Gaming brakes, he outbrakes himself a little bit there, and I've now got the inside, and there we go. That move is made, and that move was made from turn 1 at turn 5. So I'm setting up for the overtake, much more advanced. I'm thinking ahead of the game here. What's my advantage in the TT? So a bit later on, obviously Steve's got back past me at this point. We're now racing Steve again, and we're going to do the exact same move. We're going to set it up the exact same way. So again, we're on the left hand side, not quite as much this time. Steve manages to get that car stopped a little bit better this time, and now we're going through here. But as you can see again, it is only 1/10 of a difference in the gap. So we could do the exact same move again, unless Steve goes to defend it, but then we get a much better run on the exit as well, so potentially we can make the move there. So again, Steve goes to the left. I'm now going to outbrake him much more here, so he brakes at the right point this time. I now outbrake him, and again through I go. Now obviously that's going to be a hard race for me to keep that position. As I said, Jaguar F-Type has a very good top end speed there, but that's how I'm setting up for the overtake on Steve. My whole goal there is to try and get ahead of Steve. That was obviously 4 or 5 corners ahead. Here I'm just going to look at 1 corner ahead. So I'm racing Calster. Again, we've seen that the Lamborghini is very fast in a straight line. It's very difficult to overtake Calster in a straight line. It's possible, but it's very difficult. So in this situation, I've had a better run out at turn 1. So at this point, going to turn 2, just put our nose there. It's going to leave Calster a little bit tight on this left-hander, but it's a double left-hander. So Calster then has to run out because he can't get it stopped in time. And then we take it on the second apex of the corner. No outbraking needed there. Just a lovely cutback manoeuvre. We are going to look at more cutbacks soon, later on in this video. But that's literally a similar situation there. I thought, okay, I'll go on the inside. I'll show my nose a little bit there. Calster gives me room. He's then got a tighter line for that left-hander. I can then pull a nice lovely cutback manoeuvre, go on the inside, and go on the second apex. Through I go. And that was with very little braking. Just a nice lovely setup beforehand. And that's what we talk about with setting up for an overtake. Think about the track layout, think about the advantage of your car, and then think about how the other drivers are going to react. In that situation, or in both situations there, we've taken advantage of a situation, made it so the driver has to take a tighter line, slow him down, has to run wide. We're close enough then to make the overtake on a corner using either the braking, as we did with the TT, or in this situation with the Audi, it was just a double left-hander, so we can literally just take the position on the second apex. So that's all about setting up an overtake. An interesting one, but now we're going to look at the big one that a lot of people look for, which is outbraking your opponent. And sometimes this can be dive bomby and lungy, but let's have a look at that now. So, I take you back to the IGTL. We've not looked at this race in quite a while. It was a while ago I did that International Gran Turismo League setup with 3 hours of Catalonia. So, we're coming towards the end of a race. I've got much fresher tyres than the guy in front. So, effectively my braking will be far better than any of the guys ahead of me because my tyres are far fresher. You will experience that in races even now. We're going to look at fuel and tyre saving in a little bit. But even so, this is all about outbraking your opponent. Essentially, it becomes a little bit of a dive bomb, and you've got to be careful with this. This is the one move that will cause the most incidents in any part of sim racing, irrespective of game. So, here we go. You can see I've caught up to Wellham very, very quickly here. So, we've got to quickly get by him, and then obviously then head towards Perpy. So, going through this left. We're just anticipating where the best place to do this is. And obviously at Catalunya, going into the sharp left-hander, which is coming up, is going to be the best place. So as we exit out of this corner now, we're going to get a bit of Slipstream again. Of course, Slipstream is in nearly every overtaking move. We're now going to come down here. So if you look now, Welland goes on the brakes and I go on the brakes. I then come off the brakes and then go back on them again because I realise I can outbrake him in towards the apex here. So I dive down the inside. So that's outbraking the opponent. Initially, well, there's two ways to do it. You can outbrake them, as in literally just brake later, or do as I did, where I brake at the same time, lift off the brakes, therefore my braking efficiency is reduced, and then continue on the braking, and I managed to make that move stick that time. Again, very dangerous. I came from very far back. Wellham was obviously aware of that in that situation, so I managed to make the move stick. So we go a couple laps later. We're now behind Perpy. One lap. It's the final lap. Now, if you experience this in any kind of race, you know that it's going to be kind of chaotic, and you know there's going to be jam-packed action. So again, Slipstream brings us closer to Perpy. Again, Slipstream, we talked about it at the beginning of the video, it's everywhere. This is how you set up moves, it's how you can do moves as well by just doing it on the straight. Unfortunately, the FT1, which is the car we're in at the moment, not got very good top-end speed, so it does struggle a little bit. So of course, we're going to look to try and get past Perpy in a place where he potentially doesn't expect it. But again, we're going to have to try and outbrake him again because Catalunya is very technical in terms of circuit. So I show my nose here, doesn't happen, Perpy brakes and I brake, and I can't really outbrake him there. I've got better braking efficiency there, you can see that. Again, I'm setting him up for the cutback now. Now we're going to look at the cutback in a little bit. But I'm setting him up as I did previously with Calster, where I can potentially get on the inside. This situation, I don't. So now, as we head down here, just watch what happens here. So I'm going to make an absolute lunge down here. And he obviously doesn't see it. So I was already alongside him for about half a second or so, and he doesn't see it. So in that situation, you know, he turns in, realizes I'm there, there's contact, and then we have issue. So that's what you can expect if you try and go for a dive, trying to outbrake your opponent. Because there I did brake later, and I just went down the inside, and unfortunately, there's contact. And as I say, this will always happen. So, we're going now to a race that happened very recently. We're at Fuji in the F40s. And if you look up ahead, I just ran slightly deep here. I'm now going to turn left and I just get caught on the curb and the whole car spins. We have a bit of a Constantina effect. But even so, we continue out the corner. Now, just watch Thunder here. He just outbrakes himself a little bit. It wasn't necessarily a dive bomb or trying to outbrake me as such, but you can see how he just outbroke himself a little bit and made contact with me. So that is why there's a lot of contact with trying to outbrake somebody, okay? It's very hard to demonstrate because I don't do it a lot, you guys know, because it's a very risky move. Not many people look at the radar. I'm so focused on that radar in the braking zone just to make sure that I'm aware of any arrows that are coming firing down the inside. So, here we are at Fuji. We're approaching the first corner. Now, the braking's a bit sketchy anyway because we have a large amount of tyre wear. So Thunder's obviously practiced this a lot because watch what he does here. You can see how far back he is from myself there. As we approach the braking zone, he brakes in the actual perfect spot. Look at this. Straight down the inside. Initially, I thought he wasn't going to make it when I was racing this, but he stops it bang on the apex. Lovely, lovely outbraking maneuver there. Completely outbroke me. Got down the inside. Absolutely perfect. Now, some people will have turned in there, and there will have been contact. So you do have to be aware of that. Now, obviously, Thunder knows I race. I try and race as clean as possible. Maybe he knows I'm very aware. So in that situation, no contact. A lot of the time there could be contact. The further back you try and lunge or, you know, outbrake somebody or try to dive bomb somebody. Remember, a dive bomb isn't always bad. You've just got to make sure there's no contact, and, you know, all the time there is, You just have to be careful. So that is sort of outbraking people. Right. That's the easy stuff now. Now we go towards the cutback. So with the cutback, it's all about the exit of a corner. So does your opponent have a lot worse exit than you, so you can just fire out the corner and get ahead of them. Now in a normal racing scenario, that person is defending on the inside, coming into a corner. You saw that a little bit earlier on with Steve Gaming. So then on the exit of the corner, you can get a better exit, accelerate off past them, and you get that position. Now, it's quite a tricky one to do because in most situations you find yourself doing what we looked at just before, which is trying to outbrake somebody. But a lot of the time people do that, and that then becomes an issue because you can't outbrake the outbreaker because you're just going to go flying off further than they are. So the cutback is something I like to do a lot more than trying to outbrake somebody because it reduces contact and you can still get positions. Let's have a look at some examples. So here we are at the Red Bull Ring this time. We're in Group 4 again, and up ahead you can see Indian Food. Now, Indian Food is, well, I from personal experience, I know he likes to try and outbrake everybody a lot. So in this situation, I'm going to come around here. Yes, I know about the Red Bull limits there, but we follow the rules at the time. We're allowed to do that. So we're coming up towards this right-hander. Now, this right-hander is the most common place in the world for overtakes, dive bombing, you name it, outbraking, whatever you want to call it. Down here, but I know Indian Food's going to try outbrake me here, so I break my normal position, maybe a slight bit earlier. I can see Indian Food's outbroke himself a little bit, so I just do a nice little cutback. Outbreaks himself, I just take the apex and accelerate out the corner, and literally, as you can see, we've got that position. That is literally the cutback in a nutshell. A lot of people in this game, in GT Sport, will try and outbrake you, whether they're defending, whether they're attacking, they will always try and outbrake you. And we'll look at it in the defending episode as well. But when you go to overtake somebody, if they are quite an outbreaky person, now I have seen this in the lower league when we're leveling our account as well, in the fact that they will always try and outbrake. And you've heard me say it on stream, I knew they were going to do that. Because you can quickly see whether they're going to try and outbrake you. If they are going to outbrake you, just look for that scenario, break in your normal spot, they'll go flying, take your apex as normal and accelerate out the corner, as you saw me do versus Indian Food. And I just left a few other overtakes in there as well. Now this happened very recently as well. This is some Group 1 cars at Seaside 2. Now this isn't necessarily the exact same scenario because something else happens to cause this issue. But coming into this corner, M. Thomas just gets a little bit sideways into there. So we're going to have a nice run out this corner. And we're going to be side by side as we head up this start-finish straight. Now, the first corner, when we're in reverse, is the long left-hander. And as you can see, we've got 4 cars in the picture at this moment in time. And we're side by side. So going into this corner, I'm just going to break in my normal position. And then M. Thomas slightly gets tapped on the rear. So at that point, it becomes an undercut. And I was going for the undercut anyway, but M. Thomas broke early. So he wasn't trying to outbrake himself or outbrake me. So in that scenario, it wouldn't have worked. He would have defended the position. But because he got slightly tapped, same scenario, he then went wide and I can undertake both of them, and Jonathan gave me a little tap as well to boost me along as well. So it was kind of nice. It's the same scenario, trying to go for that undercut. Sometimes it will work, or a large portion of the time it will work. It's my favoured move in Gran Turismo Sport, so any of my competitors out there now know what I like to do more of than trying to outbrake somebody. But yeah, I prefer doing that because there's a lot more people trying to outbrake people in this game than there are trying to do undercuts and other strategies. But speaking of other strategies, we're now going to look at the smarter ways you can race. So let's first look at the undercut now. Not the cutback, the undercut. So what do I mean by undercut? Well, it's fairly straightforward. Currently in the FIA seasons, FIA races, there is a lot of pit stops. You know, you go in the pits and a lot of the time you'll be going in around the same time as other people. But you don't necessarily have to do this. If you're being held up substantially, but there's no way to overtake, you can do the undercut, which is, of course, pitting 1 lap earlier, getting some fresh boots on your car, and trying to put in one stonker of a lap so that when you get round next time and that person is trying to cover you off and also going in the pits, you can actually get past them and then try and defend that position towards the end of the race, because of course you'll have worse tyres at that point. So let's look at some examples and of best ways to do this and not to do this, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Well, here we are at Brands Hatch. It's lap number 5. We have lightning behind us. Now, one thing that frustrates me a little bit here is I can't show you the map in the top right hand side. But at this point, and I know Lightning said the same thing because I've watched his video and analysis of this race as well, we can see a nice lovely gap between a pack of cars, and it's like, ooh, I think we'd fit in just about nice there. So this is lap 5, so we're not even anywhere near halfway, which would be 7.5 laps. You know, we're quite a significant way off, but a lot of people have been pitting on lap 6 going for the undercut. So in this situation, we're actually going to go for the undercut, which is 1 lap even earlier. Now this sort of thing can work at the moment because the tyre wear is so extreme. Please pardon the absolutely shocking pit entry there. So we're going to advance now really quickly around. You can see we've come out in that gap that we spotted. So M. Thomas spotted it as well, I assume, because all 3 of us went in. So this is the undercut. It's not even the undercut. The undercut would be this lap, lap 6. Normally in FIA races, it's normally 1 lap under. Going 2 laps under is very sketchy to do. But even so, if you watch the race highlights of this, which is on the channel, or will be on the channel, should I say, you'll see what happens. But we're coming around to the end of the lap now, and this is where we see Matu has tried to cover us off. Jomas has gone in as well. So they're doing the normal undercut. A few other guys have come in as well, because track position is key at Brands Hatch. Track position, you can defend a lot better. So Matu just comes out the pits. We've got the racing line here. We actually go slightly inside him with a ghost in, so we get past. Lightning then on the inside of Matu as well. So Matu's going to lose 2 positions here from staying out. That 1 extra lap. And his is an undercut as well. So Matu now is hoping to try and undercut Devil, but unfortunately he's been done by me and Lightning at this point. So again, we'll accelerate round. You can see we've got this empty space, so it's perfect for us to do this undercut because we've got our tyres bedded in. We can absolutely fly around the track. And Devil can't do much about it. He's on really old tyres at this point due to the tyre wear fact that is currently in the game and in the races. So coming around here, Devil's just gone in the pits right now. TRL Aug is staying out to try and do a non-stop, so that's a total different thing that we can talk about briefly in the overcut. But as you see here, Devil's just come out the pits. We've lost even more time. We've got round him nice and easy. Lightning is going to have a massive battle with Devil now to try and get ahead, because Lightning has to get ahead at this point. He has to. If he doesn't, it's game over. Lightning doesn't get a chance at the victory. He literally has to get by. It's his one and only chance here, because Devil will be on fresher tyres, and he just does it into Graham Hill. So, you know, shout out to Lightning there, getting that job done. Very hard to do that. But as you see, it worked there. Now let's go to a track or an example where it didn't quite work for Rick up ahead, and it worked for me, but you'll see the complexities of it a little bit when you do try this. So obviously the race is an odd number, 15 laps. So you're either going to come in on lap 7 or come in on lap 8. So Matthew Collins has stayed out to try and come in on lap 8. We've come in on lap 7 with everybody else. Just taking the pit stop, and out we go. So fairly quick pit stop, and you can see we're coming in a heck of a lot of traffic there. Just in front of Parata, we have a couple of guys who've stayed out. It's Kerr and it's Blazer there. And traffic is a significant problem with the undercut, because if you get traffic, it's gone. Your strategy is gone. You won't overtake people. You'll be slowed up by the older tyres that these guys have. Sometimes they'll let you go because they understand it's not their fight. They're in a different fight with somebody else, and they don't want to lose time, and you don't want to lose time. That can happen, but you don't know unless you race these guys a lot what they're going to do. So if we look up ahead now, you can see we're being, well, I'm not being held up at the moment, but McLaren 6 is being heavily held up there. Goes for the move on Blazer down the inside now. That's going to hold them both up in terms of time. You can see we're catching very quickly. Rick's just got involved now. They're 3 wide. Now back to 2 wide going into the next corner. And this is, this is the problem with the undercut. I want to show you the good part and the bad part. So you can see now we've got Blazer sort of in a bit of a predicament here. He's on a fast right-hander, what to do. There's a slight nudge there on Rick. There's contact. There's all sorts of carnage going on. The minute you touch that dirt, as you saw, Rick's now gone off to Narnia. And yeah, lots of action. Significant problem there. The traffic has slowed people down. It's slowed McLaren down significantly. We're going to go down the inside. It's going to slow us down a little bit. It's going to cost us position. We do overtake Matthew though, so that's a good part of the undercut. But it has lost us time, and a significant amount at that. So Matthew stayed out a lap later, and we are also now going to talk about the overcut. So the overcut. Now the overcut isn't necessarily something that happens very often in the FIA, and in fact I don't have any actual examples of a true overcut. Now a true overcut is where a person is potentially behind somebody. This is to overtake, by the way. The overcut happens a lot, but this is to literally overtake somebody. Is you're behind somebody and they go in the pits. This is now your time to put in one hell of a lap to then come in the pits a lap after, or 2 laps after, or 3 laps after, and then overtake them on those fast laps where they're not in front of you anymore. Now, the reason this doesn't happen very often is just due to the tyre wear multiplier being so high at the moment. You could lose a second, second and a half, 2 seconds just from staying out that one extra lap, which is why you don't see it as much. But in this category as well of the overcut, we're going to look at the non-stop strategy, which can work. And we're also going to look at the fact of just staying out that 1 lap extra can actually help at the end of a race. Because, of course, we talked about tyre wear. If your tyres are significantly better, you have much better grip. And we just left the Alfa Romeos at Big Willow. Let's jump back to those Alphas at Big Willow. Lap number 13 now, so we're at near the end of this race, and as you can see, Matthew Collin is only half a second behind me. So you can see now he's going to have a much more significant advantage because he'll have the better tyres. He's got the Slipstream in a car that isn't as aero dependent as a lot of other cars. It's just very lightweight, the Alfa Romeo. So coming into here, instantly you're going to see my lack of grip. So this is where staying at that extra lap, as Matthew has done, is actually going to be very, very beneficial to him. And he just gets his nose on my inside there. You can see that on the radar. We're now side by side coming towards this slight right into the left. Very sketchy corner. Let's go side by side in. We make it happen. But you can see the amount of grip Matthew has, it's substantially enough that he can just basically get the overtake done. So staying out that extra lap in this situation, I'm going to call that a little bit of an overcut, has actually helped him. And you can see as we're on the final lap now, he is so close to McLaren 6. So more potentials there that he could have gained. Similar to the undercut, the overcut can be ineffective if you're the only one who stays out. You then end up in a ton of traffic. Suddenly you drop down the order slightly, because you do drop down the order if you do it that way. If you're then suddenly in the pack, you got a lot of fighting to do. You might take the life out of the tyres that you had potentially benefited from, or you might have lost out in terms of the gain that you could have had. So we're going to go to this race now, which was basically me versus Devil at the front. So we've got 2 very extreme scenarios here. We've got a front-wheel drive car, which is obviously very bad on its front tyres, and then we have the GT86, which is probably one of the best, if not the best, at tyre saving at the moment in this game. So the GT86, of course, at this point in the race, we're approaching halfway, is going to be all over the back of this TT. And the only reason I got ahead was because on the first lap, the TT absolutely flies past everything. The GT86 is quite a slow car in terms of straight line speed. So at this point, Devil is going to be all over the back of me. And if I'm Devil, I'm thinking, how can I get past this Audi TT? How? How can I get past? It's a very fast circuit. It's got literally more speed than I have, including in the Slipstream. What on earth can I do? You can see again, if you look on that radar, he's going to start looking for places to overtake. But as we approach the last corner, and then obviously it's up to me what I decide to do in terms of pitting. And Devil is just going to do the opposite to what I do. So obviously I'm going to pit. Now if you look behind me in a second, there we go. Devil goes, right, I'm going to carry on now. I'm going to go for this overcut. I'm going to try and go for the extra lap. And the reason he does that is because then potentially at the end of the race, he can actually get enough grip to actually overtake me. So of course we're in the pits. A lot of other guys are in the pits as well. We're all sort of in a similar boat here. But obviously we're racing Devil. So we're just going to sprint round now. There we go. Fast forward 300%. Look at the speed. It's unbelievable. But I want to show you that, we're gaining even on spread nuts in front of us here with this clean amount of, with these fresh tyres. And look at the speed and the gap as well. It's 10.7, 10.6 seconds, 10.5 seconds as we come round tempo 4, tempo 3, tempo 2. So even though GTA 6 is good on its tyres, fresh tyres at the moment with this tyre multiplier is so significant. The overcut is not worth it. Even if you're in the extremes of the cars, the GT86 versus the Audi TT, 2 very good extremes you can use. And look at that, we've gained over a second. So we already know we're going to come out ahead of Devil here. It's nearly 2 seconds now by the end of the lap. So as we cross the line, happy days, we're ahead. We don't even see Devil. In fact, Devil loses out to EP Racing. Lucky there. who is also in a front-wheel drive car, is actually in the Peugeot RCZ. So the only advantage Devil has there is that obviously the tyre wear is going to be so significant now versus me, because I'm doing an extra lap on these tyres, whereas Devil's doing one less in the GT86, so his tyres are going to be completely fresh. So it allows Devil now to perhaps be imaginative with his moves. So, you know, doing the overcut here is, well, we're calling it the overcut. It's not technically the overcut, but we are calling it that because it's the only way to just do this kind of move. I'm not sure what it would be called. He's going to go to the left-hand side here. Now, the next corner is a right-hander. It's a double right-handed apex. So, in theory, I should have the perfect line here. So, I come into the corner and look at the grip that Devil has. Goes around the outside. Unbelievable overtake just because he's got the fresher tyres. So the car's better on its tyres anyway, and one lap fresher tyres. Significant advantage there to Devil. He's actually got that done, which is kind of nice, to be honest. So it shows you it is possible to stay out that extra lap and use it to your advantage, as well as everybody else going for the undercut. Now, this is a race from eons ago, and I'm talking test seasons, I think. So we're in the Peugeot RCZ. Now, I qualified absolutely atrociously in this race. So I decided I was actually going to go for a non-stop. Now, up ahead, there is another RCZ in this. It's Stefanzi, and he had overtaken me at this point in the race because I'd actually trying to save fuel, save my tyres a little bit so that I could go to the end. You know how long ago it was? Look, the tyres are still in the game. What? So everybody's coming in the pits. We're 9th position at the moment, so we've got to keep an eye on that. We're in 9th position. Stefanzi stays out. I got a bit worried here because I was like, how is Stefanzi staying out? But Stefanzi here is going for the overcut in order to try and make positions. But as we know, the overcut doesn't work that well in GT just due to time multipliers. Even back in the day, it didn't work that well. So as you see, we're in 6th at the moment as we're on the final lap. So we've actually benefited from staying out and not going in the pits. So the non-stop can work well if you've got the right car for it. We also saw recently at Maggiore West in reverse, the GT86 could stay out. Impossible to beat if they did the no-stop. Here, you know, I've demonstrated it with myself, doing the non-stop, and we actually got P5, not even P6, because of a penalty there. So, literally, how good's that? Non-stop can work if you've got the right car or have the ability to do it, because it also keeps you out of the battles as well, and battles always slow you up. So, that has been the pit strategies, you know, the undercut, the overcut, non-stop. Let's now have a look at some fuel and tyre saving and how that could be advantageous to you as well. So we all know how to save tyres and fuel, but sometimes we can, in the heat of the moment, we can forget about actually doing that and the advantages that you can actually get from it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you 2 clips. One is from saving tyres and one is from saving fuel. And in both situations, I managed to gain positions because I thought about the long run of the race, the long story, rather than the short first chapter of it, or a chapter of it in the race where you potentially might want to get stuck in, you know, elbows out. But actually, in the long run, if you just hold back, you can easily pass somebody later on. Let's have a look at the fuel saving first, and then we'll go to the tyre saving. So we're here at Yamagiwa 2 in Group 2 cars. Obviously, the most fuel-heavy cars in the game, I'd like to say. It's definitely substantial. Now, we are going to go into tyre and fuel saving and how to do it in a separate episode. However, I just want to show you the impact of what happens if you do save fuel. So a lot of the time in Group 2, you might want to use Fuel Map 2 because you get a lot of power there anyway, and it'll just protect the rear tyres a little bit. But this clip is all about fuel saving at this moment in time. So we know these cars are fuel heavy. Potentially the cars in front are not going to fuel save as much because they're leading the pack, so they don't want to be overtaken, especially Assaultinator, who is out in the lead at the moment, so won't even benefit from Slipstream or anything like that. So I'm just going to stay in Fuel Map 2 the entire time in this first session of the tyres. We then advance lap number 7, and of course in this scenario now you can see that we're a second ahead of Tidgney. Basically it's gone down a little bit there, it's gone back up again. We're about 2 seconds from Matty, so you know we're not significantly far away. We're 4.2 seconds off Assaultinator. That's because the tyres have been protected a little bit as well on the rear because we've been in Fuel Map 2. However, we know these are fuel heavy cars in terms of what they use, so we're just going to come in now, and I want you to really pay attention now to the left hand side when all the fuel levels appear. So we've got 31 from Assaultinator, 32 from Matty, and then we have 44 from myself. That is so significant, that 44. So India Food had been doing the same, TRL AUG had been doing the same, so you can see very quickly that they've saved a lot more fuel. We don't have to fill up as much. We come out, and look how close we come out to Assaultinator there. We come out nearly under a second. Now if we'd have practiced this combo a little bit more, there's potential that we would have come out in the lead there. We've come out a second ahead of Matty, so it was significant enough that we gained a lot of positions, and that's kind of critical really, because if we can just overtake people without the battling, we don't really lose time. We save our tyres, so we reduce our risk on the exit of corners because the rears aren't spinning themselves as much. And all this by just changing one thing in the car, which is the fuel map. Kind of crazy, to be honest. So, I just unpause this here. This is the second to last lap of the Fuji race. We've done a couple of actions here. As you can see up ahead, there's a big gaggle of cars there. And as I said earlier, it's very easy to go, right, I'm getting my elbows out here. Coming through, guys, let me away. I'm going to have this third position, no problemo. Now, Afo had pitted one lap earlier than everybody else. I tried that previous race. It's not very good, but currently he's in third position, so he's trying to survive it at the moment. So fair play to him for giving it a shot. But as we come through here, I've been protecting my tyres. I've been protecting my tyres for a few laps now, just to make sure that if I can get the opportunity on this final lap, I can make a few positions. Again, look, there's lots of side-by-side action going on here. Everyone trying to get past Afo. Afo on essentially 33 lap older tyres plus battling, so it's probably even like 40 or even 50 lap older tyres. Kind of crazy. But we're going to come down here towards this chicane now. And as we come in, again, side by side. Now, I've been protecting my rears quite a lot. So as we come through here, you're going to see again side by side action. A little bit of door banging there, a bit of oversteer moment, but we get the power down and we accelerate past. We actually get past Afo and Matty here, and it's all because we protected our rear tyres that tiny bit more. We could get the power down. Matty couldn't put the power down as much. Rear tyres a bit more worn, therefore they span up a little bit more, and I could just put the power down and fire out that corner, and that got me 2 positions, all from saving my rear tyres. Now if you can save your tyres while staying within the mix, I always try and stay slightly out these battles because they just slow you up massively and you can protect your tyres a lot more. So if you can do that, there's potential of overtaking that way as well, and that's what it's all about. So just to show you my tyres, me versus Matty, you can see his rear tyre, bottom left tyre, much worse than mine, and then Afo's you can see is substantially worse because he pitted a lap earlier. So just by saving fuel, or saving your tyres a little bit, you know, just staying out the battles, just saving them a little bit more, you don't have to brake as much, don't have to be as aggressive on the throttle, you could potentially overtake more people. Now that's been kind of a very long episode of the driving school. We've talked about a lot of different things. I tried to demonstrate a lot of the overtakes rather than just explain them a little bit more. So we've talked about slipstreams, we've talked about setting up on various corners, outbraking your opponents, essentially dive bombing. Remember, dive bombing isn't always bad. If you can make the apex and it's clean, it's fair enough. You just got to be aware that we don't have wing mirrors in sim racing. It's literally the radar, your rear view camera, if you have one on the camera view you use, which does need to get solved. Otherwise, they may not see you. You got the cutback, you know, a lot of people try and outbrake each other on GT Sport, so just don't try and outbrake them. Let them outbrake themselves and just take a nice lovely line out the corner and overtake them that way. The undercut via the pits, the overcut and the variants of it, I'll put that in quotes, and then fuel and tyre saving, of course. And of course there's also the exceptional overtakes that you might see at the 130R, or you know, some weird things happening in a race where overtaking presents itself. But there's some substantial overtaking moves that you can do, or ways to overtake your opponents in a race where you can actually get an advantage and move yourself up that field. As I say, I hope you enjoyed this driving school, a long one, I appreciate that. The next one will be defending, it'll be slightly shorter of course, and then we'll move on to psychology after that, which should be interesting. It won't be as long, obviously, psychology versus overtaking and defending, and then we get into more analysis kind of stuff, which you have seen me do on the live stream as well. So as I say, thanks very much for tuning in. Links are in the description, on the screen, to my channel, another video, other areas of the GT Sport Driving School. If you've got any recommendations, please put them in. Any constructive criticism, make sure you mention them. But that's it for me for now. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.